Unahéen is a multimedia portrait series with drawing, digital layering, and interviews that centers Tlingit and Haida women living in California to tell their story of migration, kinship, and survivance during the COVID-19 pandemic. Katelyn Stiles yu hat duasauk. Tlingit hatsiti. Kiksari nachatsiti. Shitka kwandach. My name is Katelyn Stiles, and I am Tlingit, Kiksari clan of Sitka, Alaska, and I was born and raised on the central coast of California. I am an artist, filmmaker, and dancer, and a second-year PhD student in Native American Studies at UCDavis. This project was supported by the Mellon Public Scholars program at UCDavis this summer. Before the pandemic started, my project was to go to Sitka, Alaska and begin creating a community archive of Tlingit song and dance with the Shitka, Kwan, and Nakahiti dancers. But when the pandemic hit, I knew that this project had to wait for a later time, and I wanted to respond to my local community and show how resilient they all are in this current moment. Tlingit and Haida ancestral homelands are in southeast Alaska, but our people have also traveled south along the coastline to what is now known as California for millennia. Today, there is a community of over 900 registered members living in California from my tribe, the Central Council of Tlingit and Haida Indian Tribes of Alaska, and we have a village branch in the Bay Area called the San Francisco Community Council. Each portrait was a collaboration. The drawing was started over a Zoom call with their mask on, followed by a recorded conversation that shared their story of coming to California and their Alaska Native experience in California and how they were doing in this moment. The drawing was then layered with an image of a place, animal, or a practice that was medicine for them, and this became their mask. Donna Ray James created her own handmade mask with her own eagle formline design that she created for this project. Rachel Diaz reflected on her many practices and places, including yoga, and she chose an image of a waterfall in Yosemite National Park. And Cindy Stiles shared that harvesting abalone pieces along the shore grounded her, so I used one of her found pieces on her portrait. The layered image is accompanied with the audio from our interview, and all these elements together complete the portrait.
I was willing to take that extra step to drive to Seattle just to be able to get the cedar for the paddles and the bentwood boxes and the cedar for weaving and stuff. So that's kind of a lot of where my heart is just being able to give that little pinch of, inspiration to someone to want to go and learn it more and come back so they can learn everything else that we have out there and stuff. And so we ended up getting devil's clubs. So I can make devil's club beads, and I just rounded up anything and everything that I could while I was up there, so that when I did a culture camp down here, I could give out that kind of stuff as well. But then we came down here and I went and bought fence boards, went and looked at one of my mom's paddles and said, oh, I could do this. And so I went and drew out a paddle, figured out how many I could get out of the fence board. And then we did drums. I did weaving. And I did necklaces, devil's club necklaces, and then octopus bags. And we ended up with 25 people for that first one.
And then all of a sudden one day, it was a couple years ago, I was on Instagram and I saw somebody's live video. I think it might have been the Haida Tlingit group on Instagram or something. And I literally sat on the floor back there on my belly, just watching on my little phone the celebration. It wasn't that long ago. And I literally like could feel as the canoes were coming up and they're like singing and like they're just beating their paddles and singing to these songs, and then they're asking for permission to come to the land. And I just cried the whole time. I just like finally for the first time I felt connection. And it was just like, holy crap, like I need this in my life. And I messaged whoever was posting. I was like, this is really weird, but this is my family's story and I need to be there. They're like, you need to come. Every time I like weaved that hat, like as I brought that cedar bark through, I really felt like I had done it before, like somewhere in my lifetime, maybe not this lifetime, but maybe somewhere before. And it was just all these rememberings were coming back. And it was just mind blowing. I was like, I've been here before. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm doing. Even though we wear these masks, our voices are not silent, you know, and we can unite and empower women together and just let our voices be heard and know that we're breaking the chains, we're breaking those generational curses, and we just have to give new life to the new generations and pray for them and hope for the best.
So I lived in Sitka until I was probably about 11, and during that time I just enjoyed learning about living on an island. I remember when I was a little girl, and in order to get to Sitka, you'd have to cross a little ferry boat every day, and it was a dime. I remember it was one dime because I remember I was so impressed with the little dimes. Then used to have the Liberty, a little picture of a little Liberty, little beautiful woman on it, and I always was amazed of that beautiful coin that I would hold in my hand before I would give it to the person who took us across the Sitka Sound to Sitka, which I would have to go across every day in kindergarten to get to the Native American school. And on the island of Japonski, when I was probably, I guess, must have been 5 or so, one of the kids had pulled out a big branch from the Sitka Sound, the little waterway there, and it must have been during the spring, because that was, of course, when the herring came in and laid their eggs. And they pulled that branch out of the water with all these, these rows of eggs on it, and they were just eating them. And I didn't even know what they were doing. Like, oh, have one, it's good. And so I would be eating it, and like it's all salty and crunchy, and like, oh, they're so good. And my first experience of the herring eggs was that when I was about 5, just thinking how they popped in my mouth and were very salty. And we ate a lot of fish. My dad was a fisherman, so we did eat quite a bit of fish. And when he had a good harvest, he would trade his salmon or his halibut for some Alaskan king crab, which was my mom's favorite. So sometimes he would come home with some abundance of king crab that he would trade some of his fish for, and that was always delicious at home.
Unahéen means different water in Tlingit. We are Tlingit and Haida women living in different waters, but we are also connected by the same water. Unahéen privileges Indigenous futures by imagining our descendants in diaspora as whole, changing, and connected to Hashuka, our ancestors. Unahéen bridges us across lands, wearing masks to protect our community and adapting in an always changing present. Ganachchish.